Testing. Okay, welcome to the last module. Yes, last module, not last class. All right. All right, so we're going to have 3 homeworks on this and final exam project. Say it again. No, I really don't try, but right. That's too much? Is that too much? Is that too much? 3 homeworks on this and the final exam. It's very important to understand the usage of arrays, how the arrays work. Okay. So next week, so arrays, right? That's a topic. So arrays allow us to create a group, cells. Okay. So arrays in Python, they're also called lists. Okay. But right now, let's call them arrays. When you go to the next class, you will learn more about arrays and what's the difference between list and arrays. So when do we need arrays? Let's take a look. Arrays, file, new from Python. So let's suppose I have, I want to take 3 names, right? Say it again? Yes, during the break. Let's say I want to take 3 names, input, what do you say? Enter first name, right? And so name 2, name 3. Let's say I have altogether, I have 5 names. So what do you do? Name 4 and name 5. Right? What do these do? Enter the first name, second name, third name, fourth name. Make sense? So what do these instructions do? They take how many names? 5 names. From whom? From the user, right? So if I run it now, so let's say John, Susan, Wayne, and okay. Make sense? All it does is what? 5 names. So if we want to display 5 names, what do? We have to say print name 1, name 2, name 3, name 4, and what? Name 5. Is that clear? What does this do? These instructions, what do they do? Right, so these instructions take 5 names, and then this instruction does what? Display 5 names, right? So if I run it again, John, Emily, Wayne, Mo, why didn't it? Oh, okay, here it displayed all the names, right? You took 5 names and then it displayed all the 5 names, right? Is that clear? So far, what are we trying to do? So now there's a problem with this approach. What is the problem? For every name, you need to create a separate cell. Is that clear? Make sense? So what if I have 10 names? Then I need to, what do I have to do? Right? I do this and then copy, so call it as what? 6, 7, right? Do you see that? 8, 9, 10, so far, so forth. So that becomes, if you have a lot of names, typing all these cell names, keeping track of this becomes a challenge. Is that clear? If we have what? A lot of names, right? So how do we manage this? How do we handle this? This is an inefficient way of storing these names, right? So it is inefficient way of storing names. So how do we do this? How do we solve this? We use arrays to store a group of cells, right? So now let's create another one. Array. Let's save it as array demo 1. So what is my goal? I want to take how many names? 5. Instead of creating 5 individual cells, I want to create what? I want to create a group of cells, right? So all you have to do is this, is create name list equals, that's it. That creates what? A group of cells. So this is a group of cells. It's a list of cells, a list of names, right? That makes sense? So if I have to draw this, what's the name of this group? Name list, right? Name list. How big is this? How many are these right now? How many are there in this? We don't know, right? It allows you to enter as many as you want, basically. Right? So now, if I do this, take a name, right? Name, input, enter a name, right? What am I doing here? I'm asking the user to enter name, and I'm taking that whatever the user type goes into that cell, right? So I'm creating a cell called name. Yeah, what is the name of this group? Name list, right? Is that clear? So now I take a name from a user and I put that into this cell. I want to add whatever is in this. In other words, I want to add whatever is here, I want to add it into this list, right? So how do I do that? Name list dot, you type with the word dot, you type what? Append. Append means I want to add this to the end of the list. What do I want to add? Name. right? Is that clear? So if I have another name, I can do this. One more. See here? Understand? Do you understand here what I'm doing? First, I'm creating an empty list. Empty list. That's an empty list. Then I take a name from a user. I take a name from a user, put it into what? Into this cell, right? Let's say the user typed the word John, right? And then what do? I add John to, I append John to the name list, right? So now the John goes into what? John goes over here, right? So now John comes over here. Hold on. Is that clear? Over here, what am I doing? I'm asking another name, right? Another name from the user, and the user will type a new name, and the new name will replace the old one here, right? So the new name, let's say it is what? Susan, right? And then I append that to the name list again. Now Susan is appended to what? To that. And I take a new name, and where does this new name go? New name goes into the same cell, right? I can afford to override this. Why? Because I have appended it, right? I'm not losing it. I have added whatever is in this cell, I have added to this group here, right? So I can afford to override this. So take a new name, let's say Mary. The user types a new name. Let's say the new name is Mary. Now what do? I say name list dot append name, means Mary is now appended to what? Make sense? So Mary is appended here, right? So now let's do two more. So here I'm asking for the name. Let's say the user types a name. Dale. And then what am I doing here? I append the name to name list. So now Dale is appended to name list, right? Any questions so far?
Yes.
Okay, just give me one moment. I take one more name. Let's say Sam. And again, I append Sam to the name list, right?
Can you also loop that, or do you have?
Yes, you can. So we'll get to that, right? So what are we doing here? Basically, I'm taking a name and then appending to this list. I'm taking another name into this and appending to that list. Taking another name in here, appending to that list. Taking another name, appending to that list. Another name, appending to that list, right? Of course, so what is the advantage of this compared to the previous one? Here you created all these cells, right? So you don't have to do that. Here I'm managing with what? Just a name list. That's one group, and this is a cell, one cell, right? Yes, question. Okay. So basically I'm using just one cell. I'm keep reusing the same cell, and then I'm adding that whatever the contents of this cell into that name list. Yes.
Is there a way to have the program do it? Like how to previously enter your first name, second name, third name without you having to type it in?
Yeah, you can do that. You can customize the message here. Enter name 1, name 2, name 3. You can use the loop count to put it over here, right? Like this. enter counts on the, it's an enter name 1, right? Where count keeps changing. Whereas count is a loop count.
Yeah, but it does not customize it.
Say it again.
It's not customizing it because
What?
go to the other one that you had, the previous one.
Yeah, it doesn't replace this one, first name. Yeah. You can do that. You can plug all of these into an array and then pull from there and then do it, right? But if you have then too many, just for a few you can do that, but if you have too many then it doesn't make sense. So now, watch here. At the very end, I want to print the name list. Is that clear? Make sense? Print the name list. Now, let's run through it. John, Mary, Susan, no. Right, Dale. How many names? Dale and Maria. You see? At the very end, it printed all of them, right? So let's put a breakpoint one more time. John, Mary, Susan. Right. So now it reached over here. Step. Dale. Right. So now watch here. When I do name list dot append, see what happens. Hover over. You see, just hover over it, and then it shows you what the list is growing, right? First we add, what did we add to this list? John, Mary, Susan, and so far we added what? Dale, right? So now, we're taking the last name, Maria, right? So now watch what happens. Step over. So Maria now added. So when you say append, append does what? It appends that thing to the very end, right? End of that list. So when I do the last instruction is print name list. When you do that, what happens? So here, all of them are printed. You see that? So wait, demo 1. Quickly step through it and see how it works. Can I bring what? Right. Sure. Okay, so I send it out as an announcement take that, copy that, paste it in, and then step through it. Let me send. So there's a bit of inefficiency here. What is that?
Not having a loop.
Not having a loop, right? So what we are doing, we are taking, how many names we're taking here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And basically we're doing copy and paste, right? One thing we have learned is anytime you're repeating the same thing over and over, instead of copying and paste, you can do what? Put it inside the loop, right? So I want to take, how many names am I taking here totally? 5 names. So instead of doing this, I want to just take this and what? Put it in the loop, right? So let's say name count equals to 0, while name count less than 5, tab, name count equals to name count plus 1, right? Make sense? I'm using a name count as what? Starting off at 0, while the name count is less than 5, I take the name, so now it becomes more efficient, right? So if I have 100 names to take, what do? If I want to take 100 names, put them into this list, what do? Change this to what? 100. If I have 1,000 names to take, change that to 1,000. If I have 10,000, you see how simple it is? To make sense? We are creating this name list. How many names can you put into this name list? As many as you want. Every time you add, it appends to the very end. Right? It appends to this very end. So when you go to the advanced class, you will learn something about classes and structures and objects, stuff like that in 939. That's where you see this, the meaning of the word dot, right? So right now, you just memorize it, okay? So we're appending this name to this name list, right? And then how many names now? I don't want to test this because, right? Okay. So let me step through this. Enter a name, John. Susan. So now, so it was in the loop 5 times, right? So look at the name list. It's got 5 names, right? So let me start over one more time. So we're in the loop. What is the name count? 0. Is 0 less than 5? True. True means what? Stay in the loop, right? Enter a name, John. Append the name count. Mary. Append the name to the list. Increment the name count. If the name count is less than 5, it's right now it is 2, still less than 5. Enter the name. Jimmy. Right? Maria. So the name count is what? 4. 4 is still less than 5, so I enter another name. So let's say Sam. You append the Sam to the list. So now name count is what? 5. Is 5 less than 5? No. So you're going to get out of the loop. Now you come out of the loop, you say print name list, right? So now what does it do? It prints all the names, right? So this is much better than the previous one. Make sense? How is it much better? We're using what? Loops. Instead of taking one at a time and sticking it into the name list, we're using a loop, right? So what is this called? And then create new file from template, Python, demo with loop. And the one that I sent you out, wait a minute, okay. I should go over here. So arrays with loops, right? Send this as okay, quickly step through it and see how it works. I sent out another one. Step through it, 2 minutes. Okay, done. One more minute. So now, I want you to understand what we're doing here is we're creating a list, and then we're using a loop. We are inside the loop, we are taking the names and adding these names to this list, right? And every time you add, it's added to the end of this list. And one thing you should know, inside the list, it maintains a position for each one of these names, right? So the very first name that you appended is in the 0th position. The next name that you appended is in what? First position. The next name you appended is what? That position. Second position, third, and fourth, right? So the position always starts from 0. So every time you append something, the very first time you appended, it appended to the, because the list was empty, right? So it appended to the 0th position. Next time you appended, it was appended to first position, second position, third, and fourth, so on and so forth. And let's make a little change here. Instead of, what does this do? Print name list. It prints all of them at once, right? So I can also I can print by position. Watch here. Instead of printing all of them, I'm going to use another loop here. While, let's bring a name count back to 0. So while name count less than 5, right? Print name list name count. You can even do something like this, position so earlier I did was this, print name list, right? What does that do? It prints the entire list at once. I can also print the entire list one name at a time, right? Let's try this. So this loop, what is this loop doing? Right? What does this loop do? Collects 5 names and appends them to the right name list. What? Yeah. What does this loop do? This loop prints one name at a time from 0th position to end, right? Is that clear? Let me walk through it. So, John, Sally, Mary, Derek, so I entered 5 names. What happened? Okay, I got to run it from here. It ran the previous version. If I run it from here, I think it runs the previous version. Okay, put the breakpoint on. Run it from here. Failed to set a breakpoint. Does not exist. What is it? Okay, stop. run. What's it complaining about? Don't have a line 19. State that breakpoint. John, Dale.
Professor, I think it has to do with the position. Can you go down?
Say it again.
Can you just scroll down? Yeah, so we have it name count less than 5. It should be position.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry. Thank you. So that's why I didn't get into the loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good catch. No. Okay, let's run it. File, new file from template, save this, that is with the loop 2, 3. Run it. Maybe Susan.
It's because you forgot the single quotation before John. So that was messed up.
Oh yeah, the last one I entered, I missed the single quote here, right? Let's try it again. John, Susan, okay, now you see. So it took all the names, and you see this is the result of that. Do you see that? That is the result of that print, where it prints everything inside of that, right? But if you want to print one at a time, I'm using what? A loop here. Inside the loop, I'm starting the loop with the position what? 0, and I'm saying print name list square bracket position. You know what this does? This does, it prints a name list at that position. And next time, what are you doing? You are incrementing what? Position by 1. So when you go around next time, it prints the next position. When you go around next time, it prints a value in the next position. So in the beginning, what is the value of position? 0, right? So you see here, it's printing what? Mary. Mary is in what? 0th position. Whoever is in the 0th position here, right? And then when you go, then there's an increment of the position. Position now becomes what? 1, right? So now next time it prints John. John is in the first position. and then position changes to 2, and then it prints a name list at that position, which is Susan, right? And then position becomes 3, and then it prints the array list at the third position, so on and so forth, right? So let's quickly step through it if we can, if it allows me. Okay, for some reason it's keep throwing this error. Let's ignore that. John, right? You know, John is going to go into what? 0th position. Susan will be in 1st position. And then what? Mary, Dale. And the last one is Sam. Right. So now we enter the while loop. Look at the while loop. What is the value of position? 0. Is 0 less than 5? Yes. Now you're saying print name list at that position. What is the position right now? Position is 0. What is the name in the name list at the 0th position? You see? John, right? So let's see what happens. Say printed John. You see that? Now the position increments to what? 1. Is 1 less than 5? Yes. Now what is the position? 1. So what is in the name list in position 1? So that is in 0, and this is in what? 1. You see that? Susan, right? So now position now increments to what? 2. Is 2 still less than 5? Yes. Now what is position? 2. What is the name list? The 0th position is John. 1st position is what? Susan. 2nd position is Mary, right? So what value is going to print? Mary. You see that? And then position is now 3. And name list, who's in the 3rd position? Dale, right? So it's going to print Dale. Now position changes to 4. Is 4 less than 5? Yes. So print position 4, name list in that position. Who's there? Sam, right? So this list, arrays allow you to go through this one at a time by using position. Is that clear? This one, if you want to display all of them, you simply do what? Print name list. But if you want to display one at a time, then what do? You can use a loop, and every time you are in the loop, you can display what? One item, right? One position. So basically what we're doing here is, this is what we're doing. We have a cell called what? Position. This position points to different positions. In the beginning it is what? 0, so that this guy is pointing to what? That, right? So when you go around the loop, the position changes to what? Position changed to 1, so now it is pointing to this. Next time the position changes to 2, so it points to this. Next time you go around the loop, position changes to 3, right? So it points to that. Next time you go around the loop, position changes to 4, right? So it points to this. So you are using a separate cell called position to point to different positions within that array. Okay? Step.
What is the point of position? Is it like putting the names in order as how you put it?
Say it again.
What is the point of position?
Hold on. Okay, I sent you the recent one. Go ahead and step through it. So let's do this. Let's use functions to do this. What is this doing? What is this loop doing? It's filling the list, right? Taking the names from the user and then populating the list, right? So what I want to do, I want to call this as populate list. Right? Is that clear? So, and what is this guy doing? Put this code in a function, separate function. What is it doing? What is that loop doing? What is it doing? What is it doing? Displays the loop, display the list, right? Display list.
So what is the difference between it and the name list? Is it doing the same thing?
Say it again. This collects the information and puts it into the list. This simply spits it out, right? Two different things.
Yeah, can you say that again?
What is this function doing? Now, what is this loop doing? Collects the names and put it into what? That. What is this loop doing? It displays it, right? One at a time. It displays displays the contents of the list one at a time. This loop here displays the content of the list one at a time.
Okay, so the point of this is to display one at a time rather than all together?
Exactly. I took that print off. Remember earlier I had a print name list. I took that off.
So when someone inputs the name, it automatically displays it?
No. So I got two functions now. One called populate, other one called display. So I want to call these from the main, right? What's the name of the function? Populate list, right? Display list. I can call these functions like this. That's my main. First I'm calling what? Populate list, right? Then I'm calling display list. Now see what happens. Again, notice that I created the list at the very top. Okay. See here? It comes over here. Now, again, I got two functions. I just broke this into, I started off without the functions, right? And then I broke this into two functions. I put this one loop into a function called populate list, other one called display list, and I put this loop inside of that. And this is my main. From the main, first I'm calling populate list, so that's where it's starting. And now let's see what happens. I'm going to go into step into, you see, it comes to what? Populate list. How many names? John. I guess I made a mistake. I did not type. Okay, step in. What's wrong with this?
You corrected it.
Hmm?
I think it's corrected now.
Something got corrupted.
One again, because I think that's the problem because does not exist. Try to take off the debugger and run it.
Which one?
Take off the debugger. Remove it. Perfect.
Well, let's run it without a debugger.
Yeah. And then run it.
Okay, I think we know what's happening. Okay. Stop. So I moved this return to as part of the function. So it used to be over here. It used to be part of the loop. Now make it part of the function. Same thing over here. So now if I run it, I think I can try to make it as a global. Really, okay, so let's walk here one more time. I moved the code. I'm creating a name list over there, and then I created two functions. First function populates this, second function simply displays it. So I put a breakpoint over here, turn the debugging on, come over here. Okay, I'll close this. So now it's about to go into that function, so I step inside that function. If I want to step inside the function, I go step into. So I'm inside the function, right? So it's asking for name. And there is a problem with the debugging. Okay, it's having a problem with the debugging. So I'll just put a print. I'm inside what? Populate function. Here I'm going to put a print. Run it. So here, now you know that you are inside populate function, right? For some reason it keeps throwing. It's a problem with the software itself. So put name John, Dale, Susan. Susan, Mary, Maria. Now you see that it says I'm inside display function. So first it visits this function, populate function, so it displayed the message over there. And after that it comes to this function where it displays this message, right? So this is our main. In the main, what are we doing? First we are calling populate list, then we are calling display list, right? So now, how many arrays do I have here? One. So now why don't I add another one? Hours worked list. Wage list. Few more. Let's do it here. Hourly rate list. So how many arrays did I create? One called name, other one called hourly list, other one called hourly rate, other one is wage. So if I have to draw these, how do they look like? So my name list, right? So the other one called, what's the other one? Hourly rate. What is this list? Hours worked, right? So we call this as what's the name of the list? Hours worked list. Again, it has what? The positions. What are the positions? 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? So what is the other one? Sorry. Third one, and what's the third one? Hourly rate, right? So that is my hourly rate. And this one is what? Wage list. Right? So how many arrays did we create here? One called name list, other one called hours worked list, right? So now what do you think the populate should do? Populate earlier was only populating that, right? So now it has to populate this as well as, I'm sorry, yeah, these two also, right? So what I'm going to do, enter the name, and we're going to go hours equals to input, enter hours worked, and then I'm taking the hours into hours worked, and from here I want to append this into that list, right? How do I do that? Hours worked list dot append hours, right?
Why are there double parentheses?
Okay. So I took the hours worked, and then what else do I need to collect? I need to get the hourly rate and then insert into that list, right? So you ask the user input, enter hourly rate. You can say like this. You can say something like this. Enter hourly rate for what? That person, right? And once you take the hourly rate, what do you need to do? You need to insert that into that list, right? So what do? Hourly rate list dot append, right? Rate. Right? So I see all I did was earlier I had only one list, I added few more. I'm taking for this person how many hours that person worked, right? Let's say John worked 20 hours and his hourly rate is $15 or $25, and Susan worked, let's say, $30. Her hourly rate is what? $20. And Mary worked $40. 40 hours, and our hourly rate would be what? 25. And Dale worked, let's say, 50 hours. His hourly rate is 20. And Sam is what? 30 hours. His hourly rate is 20. Make sense? That's my goal. I want to collect the data from the user, right? What data am I collecting? I'm collecting the names, putting it into what? That list. I'm collecting the hours, how many hours each person worked. I'm putting it into that list. I'm also collecting what is the hourly rate for each person. I'm putting it into that list, right? And you notice that this data is somehow related. That means everything in this position belongs to what? John. Everything in that position belongs to what? Susan. That's how they are related, right? Even though the lists themselves are separate, but there is some relationship. Again, this relationship is only according to the programmer. Computer doesn't care about this. As far as computer is concerned, you have four lists, and there's the data in this list. Computer doesn't know all this relationship business, right? It's our problem that we're trying to solve. We establish that relationship. It's in our head. Okay. So now, what I have done so far, right? So I modified this populate list. So that's why I'm calling a generic name, populate. Populate means what? Fill the list, right? Take the data and fill the list. And then display list. Right now, what am I displaying? Only the name, right? So I want to, what else do I need to display? Name list, hourly rate list, position, right? Hours worked, you need one more. So I'm displaying the name. Every time I go around the loop, I display one name, hours worked, right? I can even say hours worked. Comma. So if I run it again now, it first is going to call the populate list. What does the populate list do? It's going to ask the user to populate this data, that data, right? Then it's going to call display list. What will the display list do? It's going to display that data, right? So let's run it. I'm going to run because I'm having some trouble to debug through it. What's your name? Enter a name. Let's say John. Hours worked. You see here? I can even do this. Hours worked. I can say hours worked for name, right?
Wait, but that's an input, not a print.
Yeah.
What would that mean?
Should be able to do it, right? Let's try. Changes, run it from here. Enter name. John. Doesn't like it. Okay. John, 10 hours. Wait a minute. We'll plan here. John worked what? 20 hours, 25, right? 20, 25. Enter a name. What's the next name? Susan, 30 and 20. Susan, hours worked, 30 and 20. Third name, Mary, 40 and 25. Mary, 40 and 25. Another name, Dale, 50 and 20. $50 and 20 is the rate. The last one is Sam, 30 and 20. Sam, 30 and 20. Why is it throwing exception? Index out of range.
There's two hourly rate lists.
Which one?
Under hours worked,
Uh-huh.
it says hourly rate list instead of hours worked list.
Where did I type? Hours worked.
Yeah, where it says hourly rate list, $1 for hours.
That's an array list. That's an array, right? Hours worked list.
Oh, I thought when it was typed that I saw both. Yeah, both of them are hourly rate list.
Line 15.
Say it again.
Line 15.
Line what?
15.
15. Hourly rate list. That's correct, right?
You have two of them. One on line 15, one on line 17.
The person should be working, right?
Oh, yeah. So that is,
That was like the first
that's hours. Oh, okay, okay, I see. This is the rate, right? Hourly rate list.
I think this line 15 should be hours worked.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
Can you explain what I was trying to do? Like, I don't know.
Okay.
I think I get it.
Like, what's the point of this one?
I'll show you. Hold on. Hours worked list. Did we have hours worked list? Hourly rate list, right? Hours worked list. So that's correct now, right? Okay. So that should be fine. Okay, John. 2025. Name Susan 3020. Mary 4025. Dale 5020. Sam 3020. Okay. So see now, So the purpose of this so far is to collect the data into array, right? Make sense? We're collecting the data and storing it in what? In an arrays, bunch of arrays. So how many arrays did we create here? Name list, hours work list, hours hourly rate list, and wage list, right? So the next task is to calculate the wage. How do I calculate the wage? So you will have this kind of scenario where you have to collect a lot of amount of data, right? And I don't want to create individual cells. Instead, I create a list and then put this data into a list, right? So here, how many names am I collecting? 5. How many hours worked you're collecting? 5. So how many hourly rate? 5, right? So you're storing this data, then you're going to do make calculations. So purpose of arrays is to store the data, massive amount of data into arrays, as much as you want. Once you have the data in the arrays, now start doing the calculations. If I say, find the person who worked lowest, what are you going to do? Lowest number of hours. Find the person who worked, whose wage was highest. What are you going to do? Right? So you need to write the functions to do the searching. Right? So that's the whole purpose of collecting the data, storing the arrays, so that you can start processing these arrays. Right? Yes.
So the display list portion of it then.
Simply it displays. It doesn't do anything, right? Yeah, go ahead. Question. Sorry.
I guess the question I'm having is what exactly is the purpose of it? That's
Display list. Which one? The display list?
yeah.
Right now it doesn't do anything. All it does is spits it back. Right? If I want to see, I will add more functionality, right? So what are we going to do? I'm building this in stage here. Pay attention to the steps that I'm doing. Pay attention to the phase. The first phase was one list. Without the functions, I created it, right? Just one loop collects the data, another loop displays the data, right? Then I'm bringing functions into the picture, right? So now I'm going to do menu driven. I'm going to add what? Menu driven functionality to this, right? So what's the next one? Display list, right? So let's say we create another function.
Yeah, well, with this store, this is something out of fun.
Which one?
The populated list in place.
That's a main. This is your main.
Main function?
Yeah. And from the main, you're calling that guy first, then you're calling that guy first. That's why it populated first and then displayed next. Right? Is that what's happening? You are calling these functions from the main. That's your main.
And why are having brackets here and adding parentheses here and brackets there?
What do you mean, parentheses?
Yeah, brackets.
These. Those are lists. These are a list. That's a name list. That's a owl. That's a, you got a square brackets.
And when you write the main function and you have parentheses, what does that parenthesis parenthesis mean?
Which one?
In the bottom.
This one?
Yeah.
You're calling that function.
Right. So we did the other main.
You remember earlier we used to pass the data here, right?
Switch, you've already done all the inputs.
Remember earlier you passed the data here from when you called the function. Here we're not passing any data. You can call a function without passing any data. Right? That's what these things are doing.
Okay, I get this part. But now let's bring it to the bigger picture. So how is that connected to the functions on the top of it?
How is what is connected?
The main function. How is it connected?
The main function calls, the main is calling the functions that are listed in the top. What function is it calling first on line 32? Populate. So it starts, and when you run the program, where does it start from? From the main. So which is the very first line in the main? What line is the very first line in the main? Line number 32. And what are you telling there? You're saying go to that function. What is the name of the function? Populate main. the populate list, right? So it jumps to that function, finishes that function, comes back to the main. Isn't that how the functions work?
Yes. Okay.
Right? And then the second one, what does it do? Line number 33, you are saying go to a function called display list. So it goes to the function, finishes that function, comes back to the main.
Is there a way to do it without having to go through all that trouble? Just start with this and that.
That's without functions, remember?
Yeah.
We can do it, but I want to start moving everything into functions.
Yeah. And how does that make it more efficient? That's what I'm saying.
We'll see, right? Okay, the next one is, let's say in the middle here, I'm putting in the middle, what is a function called calculate wage. I want to create a new function. What's the name of this new function? Def calculate wage list, right? I'm creating this new function. So now understand, what is this function supposed to do? Right? This function is supposed to calculate the wage for each person, right? So let's come back to this array. Always draw this array. This array's diagram is extremely helpful. So if I want to calculate the wage for John, what do I need to do? If I want to calculate the wage for John, what do I need to do? Multiply whatever is in the 0th position and with whatever is in the 0th position here, right? And put the result into what? Into that list in the 0th position. Is that clear? Does it make sense? So what should be the value over here? Do it manually a few times. You will know it. What's the value here? 25 times 10, 250, 500, right? Is that clear? What's the value here? 600. So how did I get this? 600. I'm taking what's here, what is in this position, multiplying it in what is in this position, putting it in the result in that position. How do I do this? Watch this. I want the result to go into which list? I want the result to go into that list. What is the name of that list? So I have to say wage list square bracket position equals to, this formula is very important. Where is my size? Text. See that? That's my wage list for any given position equals to what? What are the two things you have to multiply? Hours work list at a position, right? Multiplied by what? Hourly rate list at that position, right? So now you put this one line inside the loop and keep changing the position inside the loop, right? Make sense? So first time you're in the loop, it's going to calculate what? Wage list for John. Next time you're in the loop, it's going to calculate the wage for Susan. Next time you're in the loop, it's going to calculate the wage for Mary. Next time you're in the loop, it's going to calculate the wage for Dale, Sam, so on and so forth. Is that clear? So I'm going to take this line. First, come up with this formula here, right? Calculate the wage. What do I do? Same thing. Start with this. Position equals to 0 while what? Position less than 5 colon and plug in that formula. That's it. Right? That's the only thing you need to do. And then what? Position equals to what? Position plus 1. And then be careful where you put the return. That's my return. That's all. Very simple, right? You see,
Don't you have to specify where you're returning it?
you're not, in this case, remember one thing. A function doesn't have to receive anything. In the previous examples that I gave, function always received something, always sent back something, right? But in this Python, C++ allow you in such a way, a function doesn't have to receive anything, and it doesn't have to send back anything. But you need to put that line there called return, right? So this is an example where the functions are not receiving anything, and neither are they sending back anything, okay? So calculate wage list, simple. What did I miss? I missed the colon here, right? Right? And okay, return indent. That has to go there. And indent, okay. Def. I've never seen a language that depends on indenting. Okay, if you go to the next class, so C++, it doesn't care about indenting. It doesn't depend on indenting over there, right? So, make sense? You will see. It's a slightly different syntax. So calculate wait, and here my display list, right? My display list has to. You need to change this, right? What else you need to display? You need to display wage list at position. Is that clear?
So how did all that solve the efficiency problem?
How does what?
How did that program solve the efficiency problem?
Solve what?
The efficiency problem. You said it makes things more efficient.
Efficient.
Yeah, so how did all that steps to make things more efficient, like having functions and all that, rather than just having a program that, like, we don't need to do all the functions. I'm just trying to.
How does it make to have a functions?
Yeah, how did it save time? How did it make it more efficient?
You remember that code that you just showed me where you had 4 functions where I replaced it with 1 function?
Yeah.
Same thing. I'm going to show you that.
No, but why would we duplicate?
Yes. Well, you can reuse that same function, right? You reuse that one function over and over.
I see what you're saying.
You can reuse a function. Once you break that into pieces, you can call one function many times. Every time, first time you pass the east data, next time you pass the west sales data, next time you pass the north sales data, right? That is the whole purpose of that classwork, where you reuse the same function. You don't have to write a separate function for each.
It would be too long to just do it.
Exactly. Like, let's say you have 1,000 divisions. What are you going to do? Right now, in that classwork, you have north, east, south, west. Right? If you have 1,000, 10,000 divisions, what are you going to do? 10,000 functions?
No, same thing, but you would change it to 10,000.
Yeah.
But it would be that same length. Except you would change the leaf to 1,000, right? Or no?
No, I'm talking about functions there. Don't mix up between arrays and functions. You had one function that you called 4 times, right? Passing different data. Right? So reusability of functions. That's what makes this as modular, right? Modular. When you take a big program, break that into a function so that you can reuse some of the functions. So here, So I created a function called what? Calculate wage list, right? So now watch this. Where is Mary? Tell me Mary, number of hours worked by Mary. Tell me the number of hours worked by Mary. 40 hours. How do you know? So if you had to write a program to find Mary in this, you notice that arrays and these lists are nothing but a data. You're going to have a huge amount of data stuck inside this array. Now you have to do searching, calculations, stuff like that. That's the problem we're trying to solve, right? For example, if I had to ask the user to enter the name, find that name in the array, and display how many hours that person worked, right? That's a problem. What are you going to do? Search for what? In which list? Where? Name list. So what's the name we are searching for? Mary. So once you find Mary, then what do? Remember the position, right? Once you find Mary, remember the position. Once you know the position of Mary, just go across to the other list and find the value from the other list. That's it. That's how you solve it, right? Make sense? Is that clear? If I ask you, find how many hours an individual worked. If you have to ask the user, how many hours, you ask the user, give me a name of user. The user will type Mary. Then now you have to tell what? How many hours that person worked, right? So what do? You search for Mary in which list? Name list, find its position, right? Once you know the position of Mary in that list, then what? Then once you know the position, go to the other list and pull the value for exactly in that position, right? Make sense? So let's do the searching. Searching the array, all of that's part of your homework. I've already released it. So you have to, in your homework, you need to create name, account number, and balance. Like a banking application, right? Search. I'm going to create a function called search. What do you think this will do? Do you think it will receive something? What is it? Name to search. And what do you think it's going to return? What do you think it will return? I'm giving it a name to search. What is it supposed to do? It is supposed to search and give me back the position, right? If I'm giving it a name and it's returning the name, what's the purpose of it? Right? So the name of the function is what? Search name, right? Search for name. That's the name of the function. And what does it receive? So always think about these 4 things. For every time you write a function, think about what does it receive, name to search, right? What does it do? Searches for the name and sends back what? Searches for the name, right? What does it send back? Position of the name. If not found, what should it send back? Right? Send back -1. Right? Always think about it. A name, you may find it, you may not find it, right? So how do you search? For found position equals to 0. Assume that the found position is 0, right? While, let's say, position equals to 0, while position less than what? 5. If name to search equals to what? Name list position. If it is found, what do you want to do? What's that? You can say found position equals to position return. You can simply do return position, right? Let's do this. So I'm assuming that it is not going to be found. Right? Start off with what? Position equals to 0. And what else do I need to do? Position equals to position plus what? 1. Right? So here, this is what we assume that found position equals to -1. Start off with the position. You are looking for a name, so you start off with what? 0th position, right? And while position is less than 5, name to search, whatever that you received here, that one equals to name in the name list in that position. Look for in that position. If it matches, then you say what? Found position equals to position. You found it, right? Once you found it, you want to break out of the loop. We didn't talk about it. Sometimes you want to break out of the loop prior to the completion of the loop, right? In this example, when we're looking for a name, and if I find the name, I don't need to keep looking. Make sense? Over here, if I'm looking for Mary, where do I find Mary? In the position 2, right? Once I find Mary in the position 2, do I need to keep looking to see if Mary exists in the 3rd position? No. So that's what I'm doing, break. Break gets you out of the loop prematured. Matured means you go through the loop all 5, there are 5 iterations here, right? You see, from our position equals to what? 0 till the position is less than 5, right? So either you go through the loop all 5 times, or what? The moment you find the name you're looking for, you don't need to keep looking. You break out of the loop. Break. That's a new instruction, right? Make sense?
And at what point does it come back?
Say it again. It breaks out of the loop to that line, right? Where does the loop end here? All of that is the body of the loop, right? So it comes out of the loop and it comes over here. And if you remember here, found position, you set it off to what? -1. So if you found it, you change the found position to whatever the position. Let's say if you didn't find it at all. If you didn't find at all, you will never touch that line. That line number 45 never gets hit. It doesn't hit that line at all. Right? So if you didn't find, that will remain as -1. If you found, then if you find the name you're looking for, this changes to whatever that position is. I hope this program works, but right? So now here, that's my search for name, right? Populate list, calculate wage. So now, search for name. So I'm asking the user, please enter the name to search, and I'm taking that into name to find, and then I want to send this name to find to that function. Right? Make sense? Taking that, I'm asking the user to enter the name, I take that into that cell, and then I send that cell over to this function. And what does that function send me back? It sends me back found position, right? And I have to say if found POS equals to -1, then what? Right? You say name not found. Else what? Look here. Display list. Right? Right now, display list displays all of them, right? What if I want to display just one? Let's just do this. Sorry. That displays all of them, right? So I want to create something that display one. What does it do? It takes the position, get rid of all of that. You see? Make sense? What does this do? What's the name of this function? Display one. What does it receive? The position. And what does it do? It displays the name list in that position, hours worked in that position, whatever the position you send. Right? Now, watch here. I'm going to modify this a little bit now. What does this guy do? It's displaying all of them, right? He is displaying what? 1. So do you see some duplicate here? That line is pretty much what? Duplicate, right? We'll fix that later on. Let's leave it right now as it is. So again, this function displays just 1, whereas this function displays all of them, right? So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this guy. What's the name of them? Display 1 from where? From the main. Remember, if found equals to -1, you say not found, otherwise what? Display 1 in what? Found position. Right? So I'm going to not call display list at this time. I know I'm doing more than what I had planned because you need to do a homework, plus you don't have a class next week, right? So you're going to celebrate. I might as well make sure that you have enough work the next 2 weeks. Okay?
Wait, so we're going to have homework on that?
Yes. I released 2 homeworks. So now, again, what is the main doing here? Look at the main. The first thing it's doing is what? Calling a function called population list. Then it calls a function called calculate wage. Then it takes from the user, what does it do? Takes a name, right? Name to find. And then it calls search for name, and it sends name to find. And what does the search for name do? It searches for the name. It sends back the position. If not found, it sends back what? -1. So you have to check to see if found position equals -1, display not found, else do that. Right. Now, watch here. I'm going to make it as a menu driven. See how I'm adding this bit by bit, right? In steps. The last thing I'm doing is adding a menu. So let's call def display menu. What does the display menu do? Enter P to populate data. Enter yes to search, let's say C to calculate wage. Print, enter yes to search for name. Print, enter E to exit, right? You guys have already done this, right? And then you take the choice, input, enter your choice, and return what? Return choice. The thing is that when you go to other languages, you don't have this colon here, like C++. That's why I keep missing that. When you go to C++, you don't have colon next to if, you don't have colon next to while, you don't have all of those. The syntax is a little bit better. And Java too, same thing. So what does this function do? Displays the menu, right? This function displays the menu, collects the user response, and what? Sends it back, right? Make sense? Now, watch here. In the main, I'm gonna call display menu. Watch here. You see? In the main, what am I doing? The very first thing I'm doing is what? Very first thing I'm doing is what? Display menu. So it's going to display that menu and collects a user response and sends back the choice which goes into response, right? And then what do you think I should do? These things. I need to make these things as conditional, right? You see that? When do I call a populate list? Only when the user enters what? P, right? So what do? If response equals to P, right? Or response equals to lowercase p, then what do you want to call? You want to call populate list, right? Elif, right? Response equals to C or response equals to lowercase c. What I want to do? If the response is what? C, calculate wage. Am I correct? Watch here. Elif response equals to S for search, right? Or response equals to lowercase s. What do you want to do? If the user types uppercase s, then you want to do all of this, right? Take the name, indent that. Make sense? Why is it complaining here? Same thing? Okay. Is that clear? So now, so they didn't type, the user did not type P, C, yes. If they type Elif, response equals to E or response lowercase e, what do? Thank you for using the program. Right? Bye. Elif, else. Else means what? Yep, that means they didn't type P, they didn't type C, S, E, none of those, right? What do you want to say? Else, colon, right? Print invalid choice, please try again, right? Do you see that? From the main, what is the very first thing I'm doing? I'm calling the display menu. What does the display menu do? It displays all these choices, collects a user response, sends it back to the main. And then in the main, I'm checking to see if the response is P, then I call populate list. If it is C, then I call that. If it is yes, then I call this. If it is E, then I say thank you, enjoy. Else, I say invalid. So do I do this just once or I need to keep doing this? Do I need to redisplay the menu? Yes, I need to put the whole thing in a loop until they type what? Until they type E, right? Isn't that what your midterm was like that, right? So I put the whole thing in the loop while, right? Response is what? Is that what it is? That one? Not equals to, okay. That is not equals to E, right? Push all of that into, well, one. Response before the assignment. Okay. Response equals to make some dummy variable. So I put the response equals to as what? Blank. So while, as long as it is not E or what? Uppercase E or low, as long as it is not equals to uppercase, right?
Or lowercase.
Lowercase, then do this. Do you see how we do this in phase? When we started off doing it, right? We did what? Without any functions, then we brought in functions, then, right? So why do I want the menu? Now the menu is being called inside what? The loop, right? In the main. And then depending on what the choice, you branch off into different functions, right? And something else here, watch this. What is the difference between this? Display one and what? Display all, right? What does this do? Display all of them, right? So now what you can do, take that line off. That line off, and then you can call display one position. You see, let's call this as display all, right? So display all has a loop. Inside the loop, you're calling what? Display one. And what does display one do? Display one takes a position and displays all the data inside that position. And this guy is also being called from, what? Search. See that? That's the advantage of breaking that into functions, so that you can, one function can get called from so many different places, right? Just nodding your head. Go through this program 50 times. Step through this, right? I haven't, for some reason my debugger is not working. Let me see if at least it runs. See? Let's type A. Enter your choice, A. Oh yeah. Choice A, right? Invalid choice. Let's try what? B. Invalid. Let's try E. What does it say?
Invalid choice. Please try again.
Thank you for using buy, and it should say buy, but why is it continuing? Hold on. Something is, you didn't have to. While, okay, invalid, thank you. Response equals to E, okay, while response and you're right, and
What's the difference?
what's the difference?
No, that's just-
There you go, right?
Yeah, so how did the end make it?
And while it is not uppercase E and it is not lowercase e, right? As long as it is neither of those, it stays in the loop, right? As long as it is neither uppercase E nor lowercase e,
Yeah.
it stays in the loop. I know it's kind of confusing. That's how I had or before. Think of while as long as it is not uppercase E and not lowercase e, right? As long as it is neither one of those. Right? So let's do this. Run. Let's try populate. Enter a name. John. Hours work 20, 30. Susan. Hours worked 40, 50. Dale.
How many times?
20, 25. Enter name. Mary. 25, 25. Oh, how many names we have? Derek. Right, see, after collecting all the data, it came back to what? Came back to the menu, right? You can make it look neat. So now here, let's say I do C. C does what? Right? When you say C, it's going to come over here, right? It's going to calculate the wage. Okay, something broke. Index out of the array here.
You can do it.
Calculate the wage. Oh, you know what? You got to do this. Append. So you can do wage equals to, yeah, you're entering the data into that array, right? Wage.
You spelled offend wrong.
No, it's not spelling. Oh, you're right. Thank you. So you see here, I'm adding the wage, right? I'm calculating the wage, putting it into that cell, and then I'm appending that wage into that wage list. Make sense? I have to enter it all over again. Okay, let's try running it again. P John 20, 25, Mary 10, 20, Susan 20, 20, Dale 20, 20, Derek 30, 40. So we're back to the menu. Calculate wage should work now. There. It calculated, right? So search for a name. Let's go back up here. Mary. Going to search for Mary.
Position 2.
Right?
No, position
1. That's in position 0. Mary is in position 1, right?
Yeah.
How many? How many hours? 20 hours. 20 is 8, right? $400, right? So search. Please enter the name to search. Mary. You see? It found this one, right? Mary, hours worked is 10, hourly rate is 20. The wage is what? Oh yeah. 10 and 20 is 200. Am I correct? You're right. Yes. Mary is what? 10 and 200, right? 10 and 20.
What is free?
E for what is what?
Free.
That's calculate wage. Did I do that? Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did it, and then you went back to the menu.
Yeah, calculate wage doesn't display anything. It simply, what it does, it fills the data into this. Here, watch this. You're collecting the data from the user, putting into these list here, right? And this list needs to be calculated, right? That's what C does. Okay?
So if you enter the data but don't do the calculate.
Yeah, that's, you got to be, you need to set a flag there or something like that, right? They may try to do a wage without having entered they may try to do calculate or search and they haven't even populated yet, right? So you need to set a flag there to make sure they have populated before you let them do search or calculate wage, stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to send this code. Enjoy, step through it a few times. Pay attention how we build this in steps, right? Do the same thing when you do the homework. Don't try to do all at once. Just do it one little part, get it working, do a little bit more, get it working, stuff like that. Which one? It's okay. Yeah, don't worry. You too. Thank you.